I thought I would show you through today how I've actually got Reaper to be a particularly good tool for me. Now, everybody is fussy, and my concepts may not exactly fit in your shoes, and that's fine. But if you are doing voiceovers or some kind of production from home, this may be of benefit to you, and I thought I would put it up on my website. First of all, my history is long when it comes to DAWs or digital audio workstations. I've worked with Adobe Audition. I've worked with Goldwave, I think, at one point. I've worked with a bunch of them. And Audacity. Oh my gosh, I can't think of all of the ones that I have. Sony SoundForge. And I guess the biggest one lately has been Mixbus. I love Mixbus. I love the sound that it puts out, a sort of a warm analog kind of sound, but you can't really use it in Windows. At least my experience tells me you can't really use it, at least the way that I want to hear it in Windows. It's got to do with this thing here, how it handles the Microsoft sound system. And you can see that, yes, I am using that in Windows. I decided, for other reasons, because my studio is more part-time than full-time, that I ought to deploy my machine and basically answer my emails and all of that and have Office going at the same time so I can do the business part and do the recording part on one machine. At some point in the future, if it ever gets so big, then I will have a dedicated machine and I'll have to rethink that. But bottom line, the paradigm is roughly the same. You insert a track in Mixbus, and even in Adobe Audition, it's like that too. And you have a little recording thing. So you press the record, and away you go. A track starts to happen. That is, if you actually arm the track. You have to remember to do that. What I find about this, though, is up there where my eyes naturally focus. Now, maybe I'm a funny fellow, but it seems to me that where you have the action is where your eyes go. Now, you can see more here with that particular track, and I actually like to have a workflow on top of this to have the output equal where the master track goes to. It's kind of a funny thing. It's also something that I got used to in Mixbus. Mixbus was kind of the thing for me for the longest while. And it went from left to right, which made perfect sense for me. Because here's my in, I'm doing my work here, there's my in, and it's all going out to here. And that's where the final stage is. You might put some kind of an effect on there, a equalizer or a compressor or whatever, and master it up. Make it as shiny as possible. And at that point, the last stage of it, both in Mixbus and in this particular one, I'm not really cognizant of other DAWs, but it seems to be pretty germane with a lot of different kinds of audio software. You hit the render, and there's your project. So what I've done is I've actually made a rendered audio directory. All of my stuff goes there, and I simply have to look at the quality of it, extreme or otherwise, and give it a name, and it's all in the same directory, and it's done like dinner. That's the workflow that I prefer to have. Now, some of the small things that I really enjoy, now that I've figured them out in Reaper, and this is what I'd like to show you, is if you go to the track here and you hit the track layout, you see a bunch of different ways that this track can actually look like. It can look like that, and we'll go back here and hit another one, large Marge. There we go. But it still has a very tiny meter on it. So let's change that. One of the things you have to do in order for that is to get a different kind of theme. And they're available on the Reaper site. Lots of them. Pages and pages of them. I found that this one here works. I also prefer a dark theme, but that's kind of eye candy. For me, it's got to do with being able to see and do what I got to do with the track. So there we go. Now you can see that I can look at that meter at a glance as I'm recording and get an idea of whether I'm too hot. Everything seems to be peaking roughly below 12, minus 12, and that's about where you want it. That's optimum modulation, recording digital. Now you can actually bring this up if you're talking too quietly, and then your track will be a little bit hotter as you record. Or I happen to have outboard stuff. Maybe I can crank up my outboard stuff a little bit if it's a little bit too quiet. But nonetheless, here you are tracking. Now, one of the things I really loathe and didn't happen for me in Mixbus, in Adobe Audition, and other things, what really didn't happen well for me is versioning. Versioning was a big problem for me because I would put a second take here and a third take there, and you can imagine that becomes rather unruly when you have a piece you're working on, and maybe you have to do 2 or 3 takes for the client different ways, and that becomes kind of hairy to figure out which one it is. So I prefer to have everything together and work with sort of a versioning format. Here I am about a month or so ago looking at the site, and Kenny Joya, the guy who's actually pretty much the person that explains Reaper on most of the videos, said, yeah, there's takes. And I went, takes? We used to do this in a recording studio. Actually have a number of takes on the same track. And I thought, that was kind of neat. I just figured it out. It's pretty simple. So simple that, as you know, many good things, it's simple enough to get past you, to elude you. So here I am doing a take. And by the way, one of the things I like to have with a take is I like to be able to view where I am in terms of time. If this is a 30-second commercial, I want to know that I've got just a few more seconds left. And another way of going about it really is to put a backing track and to just basically play to the backing track, have 30 seconds worth of music, sound effects, or whatever bed, and just do takes to that. If you're doing that, multiple takes are very, very convenient. And, well, in many cases, very necessary. So now I'm at 30 seconds. I just about done this opus. Boom! And we save it. Okay. So now I've got another take to do. Let's just say that I was an award-winning take I just did. Of course. Now, what do I do now that I've got my, I call them a safety take. Now that I've done it really clean and I've got everything done, but I want to go for the gold. I want to put a little bit more gusto into it. Here we go. Click. Record. Now I'm doing take number 2, which is, in a world, things will be changing because of my voiceovers. Okay. That's a bit of schmaltz for you. It's such schmaltz, I know you will like it. All right. Now, what happens when I hit the stop? 2 takes. Now, if there's even a third take, you can also do it. As you see, the first time I did that, I panicked because I'm thinking I'm recording over top of the other takes. No. Actually, in this particular DAW, you can have multiple takes, lots of takes on the same channel. And it is so cool for somebody doing voiceovers to be able to do multiple takes. Sometimes I don't get warmed up until the third or fourth take. And that is where that is. Now, how to select them? Go to the next take, which, as you see, gets highlighted. Let's go to the next take. That one gets highlighted. What a neat system for a voiceover person, I think. Now, the other thing that I like to have is basically a lot of media. That's almost a necessity for me because I have sound effects to put in and I have music to put in. How am I going to handle that? Hit the view again and you look for Media Explorer. And this just happens to be on my hard drive, all the legal stuff that I've found. So let's just put a backing track in. All right, well, we'll get rid of that one. And away we go. We could be doing yet another take, but you can see that getting stuff off of the hard drive and into the DAW so you can manipulate it isn't that difficult a deal. One of the things I'd like to show you is the fact that you can preview just about anything. Okay, so that's not the one. Okay, what about the... I thought that sounded a little bit like the Allman Brothers. What do you think? So this, in a nutshell, is what I think is really cool for a voiceover person. Now, what you have to do is you have to play around with the actual themes themselves so you can get a big meter up there. Not all the themes support it. And what I recommend as well is you take a look into your preferences and deal with the actual folders, the paths, because you can't actually put everything into the same folder every time. So the render path, I put that there. The default path for my audio work, I put there. So everything is in the same spot. Another neat little thing is at the end of the day, you can actually have the same stuff over and over again. Probably you'll use this setup more often than not. As you can see, I have a template called Voiceover. Now, you could have multiple track, you could have a number of different things, and just simply save it as a template. End of story. It is a really, really neat DAW. It costs $60, and it takes all the plugins you can possibly want to shape your sound. If you try it, I hope you enjoy.